Guys, I failed a drug test one time. I got a phone call, and it was a big deal. I was working at FS1, which meant Fox. And I mean, you can't have a guy. You can't put a guy in a suit and put him behind your desk and put him on your network that's facing violation of sport. So there's a big deal. They got to bring me in and go, hey, what do we do here? And I came from a position. You must understand this is a different time. I don't think what I'm about to say to you, like if you put it under today's standard, you're probably going to brush me off. But this was a very different time. Now you hear terms like USADA and the pool and 24/7 testing and out of competition. You hear those terms and you know what they mean. This is before all of that, where these were not commonalities. So I have failed a drug test for legal medicine that are not steroids or anabolics of any kind. This is the spot that I find myself in. And I'm also out of competition. And the rules are vastly different out of competition than in at this time. I'm not attempting to plead my case for you. I'm attempting to tell you that when you go the silly me defense, Mr. Surprised face, that's a pretty tough one, right? That's just a pretty tough defense. And the rule actually supersedes everything, says it's the athlete's job to know. Now, that's a very bizarre cop-out. It's a very bizarre cop-out when you have the government versus a lowly cage fighter. But the rule's there nonetheless. Okay. Now, who says you can't take legal medicine outside of competition? WADA. WADA says that. Okay, I wasn't tested by WADA though. I was tested by Nevada. Yes, but Nevada follows WADA. Okay. WADA is in charge of the government. Really? Fair enough. If you can tell me, right? Because I've got to have information. You have to have the information. It's my job to have it. Fair enough. Where am I going to get it? You have to have some kind of level reason. You can't keep secrets and then say it's somebody's job to know, right? I think you would all agree with that. So I'm literally sitting with the decision maker. We got lawyers in the room at FS1. FS1 was the number 2 sports entity in America, only behind ESPN. It's a big deal. So I'm in the office of FS1 with lawyers. And I simply said, if you can find anybody, any lawyer, any office, any floor, any desk in this entire building, you tell me I should know the rules of WADA. If you can find anybody in this building that can tell me what city WADA is in, I'll plead guilty right now. Nobody said a word. I said, guys, let me make this easier for you. You're telling me that I have a job as a lowly cage fighter to know rules for non-performance enhancing agents and decisions made by WADA. If you can tell me, I don't know how to get this information. I don't know their phone number. I don't know their address. I don't know who the head of it is. I don't know the secretary over there. I've never even heard these names, but let me make it easy on you. If you can tell me what state WADA is in, I will plead guilty right now. I will admit it was my job to know and the information was there and I didn't get it. Silence. Absolute silence. So I played it one more time. Guys, if you can tell me what country WADA is in, I will plead guilty right now. And it was one of these very tough spots where people began to realize that this agency that's making decisions that another agency is somehow beholden and for yet another third party known as the athlete, but it's the athlete's job to know what these guys are doing, to know what these guys are going to test for. So you have information from agencies that there is no way to actually garner that information. There is nothing reasonable about it. And I wake up today and I read an article, somebody with the WBC, The WBC, now you got to understand, I work for ESPN, and I brought this to you guys a few days ago, and I told you how surprised I was when ESPN reported that Tyson Fury is the reigning WBO champion. And they did. I even brought that to you guys. I said, guys, I didn't know he was the WBO champion. I said, that's just not what my memory says. I admitted I had it wrong. I said, guys, off the top of my head, I remember him retiring in the ring in front of 93,000 people. He brought Francis in there. And when you retire, all those belts would go away. And I don't remember him competing again. He must have, but I don't remember it. And I don't remember it being for the WBO championship. Well, it turns out he's the WBC champion. And we heard from a representative from the WBC. Right. But this is as silly as this agency known as WADA, where nobody in sport knows what city, what state, or what country they even reside in. They do not know their phone number or how to get it. They don't know who to ask for when they call, right? Nobody knows anything about this, and they have ultimate authority. So we have somebody who commented from the WBC. I can only imagine the office of the WBC is like the front cab of the guy's Honda Civic as he's driving around. Hey, where you at? Hey, I'm in my office, right? I can't imagine this is an actual team or structure. I have no idea where they reside in. To the point that the worldwide leader 3 days ago thought that the last letter in their acronym was O instead of C, and nobody caught it to say anything. So, but this is an interesting thing, right? When you have these governing bodies, people have no idea who they are. And you wonder with what validity and with what power. So then the WBC, right? If you're not good at speaking, don't. You can have absolutely no comment, and the WBC would have been better. But if you do choose to speak, you're going to be held responsible for the stupid stuff you say. So the person over at the WBC that chose to spoke said, we gave Tyson an exemption to go and do this fight. It's not for a championship. It has nothing to do with us. And there was no number one contender for him to fight. And then the guy went out of his way to point out that Tyson did try to fight Joshua. He did try to fight Ruiz. And he did try to fight Usyk. And those just didn't come together. That part was interesting. How can you possibly say that you're a boxing organization and you don't have a number one contender? How could you possibly say that? How can you possibly not find the guy and make a decision on the back end of saying you tried 3 different guys? So you're making it very clear to the world that it doesn't overly matter. Ultimately, it's, who raises your hand. I get it. That's the way sports work. Like, I get it. It's just something that you protect a little bit better and that you didn't need to offer in a statement. I couldn't tell you the name of the person over there. It's not a real organization. They don't have real power and they don't have real authority. I also don't believe his story. Just in fairness, I'm just letting you know, I don't believe it. There's something in contracts, and it's called a loan out clause, where when a guy's under contract, he can be loaned out for X amount. And it's very standard in our industry that number's $100,000. Hey, I've got your guy, you got nothing going for him, but I'm going to give you $100,000 so that I can borrow him. I personally think something more along these lines happened, or a deal of some sort was made. That's what I personally believe. But I do think that it's very interesting that Tyson would go there for an exemption if he and Francis aren't in fact boxing. And you do get tied up in a couple of those technicalities. Like when you hear world record or when you hear Olympic record in track and field, you would assume here, let's just do world record. You would assume in track and field when you hear this is the world record time, that is the fastest time ever done in the world. No, that's not what it means. It's what it would make you believe. It's what it would lead you to believe, but it's not what it means. It has to be a world record. It has to be at a world event. So if you have a time that was faster and it was at the NCAA event, just for example, fastest time the world's ever seen was at this event, it's not the world record. That would be called the NCAA record. So I just share with you that we play this game in sports. We play this game with semantics. And in boxing, it's disappointing to hear. But I don't know how you would change it. Like the Thrilla in Manila. By example, Ali versus Foreman, Tyson versus Spinks, Sugar Ray versus Marvin Hagler, like the biggest fights of all time. I've not got the foggiest idea, and neither do you, of who promoted that. I don't have the foggiest idea, and neither do you, of what body was sanctioning or belts that it was. We have no idea, and it's not relevant at all. We don't care in the fight world, historically speaking, if it was at the NCAA event or if it's at the world event. Whoever came in faster is the best. And that's the way that it's always been perceived. And, I mean, this is very clumsy. It is very clumsy to not have a very clear answer as to what these two are doing. If the title is not on the line, then you're not boxing. It's against the rules. And if you're doing something else, you shouldn't advertise it as boxing. You're doing something else. And it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept by a guy at the WBC who, much like WADA, nobody knows what city they're in, what state they're in, or what country they're even from.